Hi, this is Dave Schwartz, author of Roll the Bones, The History of Gambling, out now in the brand new Casino edition, new and updated and improved. And great news, we're into Chapter 5 called Spangled Gamblers, and now finally 110 pages into the print edition we get to America. All right, and that's why I'm wearing my USA shirt today, in honor of the gambling traditions of this great country and of finally getting here. I start out with Native American gambling, which had been a part of cultures here in the Americas since the human settlement of the region, and I get a little bit into specific games as well as the myths and other cultural beliefs related to gambling among many groups in what is now the United States. I even talk about the role of gambling in the Spanish conquest of the Aztecs, and then later in the late 19th century, the small role of gambling in the ghost dance movement in the western United States. After that, I transition into European colonists and settlers coming to what is now the United States. And it's very interesting because gambling was central to the Jamestown colony, which later developed into Virginia. The gentlemen colonists who came over here pretty much preferred to look for gold, although they didn't look very hard. In any event, they didn't find a lot in Virginia, and to gamble, to actually working at raising crops and trying to build a settlement. And the only thing that saved the Jamestown colony was when they finally discovered that, hey, if we take this tobacco stuff, put it in the barrels and sell it to Europe, we can make a lot of money. So that cash crop really saved Virginia. And that became a way for people to gamble. It was a speculative commodity, and they gambled on that, as well as gambling on cards and dice. Now, up north, it was different. The Puritans gambled, but not quite as publicly as the Virginians, and it wasn't really a part of their way of life the way it was down in Virginia. After talking about the different colonies and how they gambled, I go into the Revolutionary War, where, not a big surprise, there was gambling on both sides of the conflict. And George Washington, even though there's a quote floating around on the internet talking about how gambling is the most pernicious of all vices, yada, 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 actually he was a pretty moderate gambler himself. If you look at his minute book where he records his different economic transactions, he would lose moderately at the game of whist, probably about as much as befit a gentleman of his status at the time. Even so, he did discourage his troops from gambling because, as you can imagine, it wasn't a great thing for morale. Another little factoid I have in here is that Thomas Jefferson passed the time while he was writing the Declaration of Independence gambling, backgammon and games like that. Then I go into the role of gambling in the early colonies and how it was important in there, both in lotteries and in card games. And I introduce at long last the game of faro, which we'll see in the next chapter was very important in the western United States. And I've even got a nice little diagram of the game. So if you've always been mystified by faro, hey, buy Roll the Bones Casino Edition and mystification gone. After that, I talk about the role of gambling in the election of 1824, which was really the first bitterly contested partisan election in the U.S. Supporters of Andrew Jackson allege that John Quincy Adams, the incumbent, had spent public money on a billiards table, which was seen as a huge scandal. Ironic because Jackson himself was a huge gambler. Adams supporters later admitted that, yes, he bought a billiards table for the White House, but it was a used one, and he spent his own money on it. And he only bought it to entertain European aristocrats. At that, the Jackson supporters went nuts, saying, the president thinks he's better than us, he's entertaining European aristocrats in the White House. So there. So that was kind of exciting. Finish off the chapter by talking about how illegal gambling halls were very popular in Washington, D.C., especially among congressmen and also among lobbyists, which is why there is a bit of scandal associated with it. Doesn't take too much to imagine why. Finally, wrap it up by talking about how all this set the stage for Western expansion of the U.S. and of gambling, which we're going to see in the next chapter. You can learn more about all this at rollthebonesbook.com. Thank you very much.